Hi, and welcome back to the Church Law Podcast. I'm Erika Cole, the church attorney, and I'm so excited to have you join us as we dive into some of the top legal and tax issues facing churches and ministries. I'm excited for this episode. We've titled it How to Nail Church Leadership in Challenging Times. And I have a very special guest with me today, someone who's been instrumental in equipping church leaders with the knowledge they need to navigate leadership and theological matters effectively. Joining me is Dr. Nicole Massie Martin. Dr. Nicole Massie Martin holds degrees from Vanderbilt University, Princeton Theological Seminary, and Gordon Cornwell Theological Seminary. She is the Chief Operating Officer at Christianity Today and the founder and executive director of Soulfire International Ministries. She's an accomplished writer and author, serves on various boards and councils, and leads the Grow Ministry at Kingdom Fellowship AME Church in Maryland. She and her husband, Mark, are the proud parents of two amazing daughters, and I'm really excited to interview her today based on her newest book. Welcome back to the Church Law Podcast, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Erika. It is an honor to be here.
Well, I'm saying welcome back because if you did get a chance to connect with her on a prior episode, it was called Equipping Young Church Leaders, and it is fantastic. We will link it in the show notes, so you should absolutely check it out after this episode. And I just want to mention that listen until the very end, because this book that we're talking about today, you will get a chance to win your own copy. So let's dive in, Nicole. Can you tell us about your book? I'm holding up a copy here, fresh with my own markings. It's called Nailing It: Why Successful Leadership Demands Suffering and Surrender. And I've got to tell you, when I read just looking at the cover page, I was like, ooh, this is going to be something. Can you tell us a bit about your journey and what brought you to the desire to write this book? Because the subtitle about suffering and surrender, I had to clear my throat a bit.
Yes, how about that? I had to clear my throat in writing it. I mean, of all the things to write, why couldn't it be leadership, the way to become wealthy and successful? I don't know, nailing it, the way to be on top of the world. But the reason why I wrote the book is what I deeply believe, and that is you don't get to the top of the world and the success and the points of leadership of resurrection glory without going through some type of crucifixion. And we deceive ourselves when we think that leadership and Christian living in general is about taking up your pillow and your comforter and being excited and happy and comfy with Jesus, when clearly he said, take up your cross. So the idea of nailing to the cross whatever the world says success looks like gives us grace to lean into what Scripture says is successful according to the cross.
Wow and wow. Yes, I love how you direct us to the word. I love how when you write this book, you also give us some time to have those Selah moments in the questions that you include. I love that so much. So I really love the format. You also write in the book about the cost of scaling organizations without sacred intentions, which can lead, you say, to treating people as expendable. Can you describe to the listeners about the scaling up model and how it can be damaging in a ministry context? Because we love growth, right? We believe in growth. I am grateful that as a business person, you want to be able to see growth, but you talk about this in a ministry context, this scaling up model. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah. If you were to sit down and talk to Rick Warren, who is the pastor of Saddleback in California, if you were to talk to him today and ask him, hey, if you could go back to the early 2000s when Saddleback was growing out the weeds, what would you do differently? And he would say, I would just make sure that our scale was led by the Lord and not led by our own motivations. The pastors at Willow Creek would say the same. And you know these stories far better than I do. What I was saying in the book is not that scale is bad. There are authentic times when ministries must scale, when you cannot accommodate people in the seats, when the ministry itself is so replicable that you can do that and allow people to flourish in their gifts when you do. However, we have to discern the difference between a God-called scale and a self-ambition motivated scale. And when we start to scale from our flesh, it's hardly ever sustainable. This is the difference between we're expanding our services because we can't keep this gospel to ourselves, and we have developed leaders that are called and equipped and ready to serve. Between that and, we just need FOMO services because the church down the street got full services and we need to compete and keep 4 services. And again, sometimes we don't know, but that's why the whole premise of the book is let me nail to the cross what is my idea so that God's idea can be resurrected, full of grace and sustainable for the church and for my professional life as well.
I love this so much because I think you're really hitting on the next thing that I wanted to ask you, which is how can professionals encourage scaling up in a restorative way, right?
Yes.
So you mentioned Saddleback and Willow Creek and other models that we all know and can appreciate just how they've operated. But if there are churches that feel like they are wanting to fight staleness
Yes.
and you want to encourage scaling in a restorative way, like what would you say to them?
Pray. I don't want to
Yeah.
minimize the scaling process,
Yeah.
but in order for scale to be sacred and sustainable, it has to be governed and driven by God. So as we seek God, healthy scale looks like God raising up the right leaders to sustain his work. That is one of the key things that we often miss in ministry scale because our selfish ambition suggests, well, as long as I'm streamed to whatever location, then I'll be okay. But even if you stream yourself to the next location, you still need ushers, you still need greeters, you still need leaders who will lead worship, you still need people who will be the glue to hold the congregation together. So as you pray, the first question is, who are the people God is raising up for you to deploy in the ministry scale at this time? If you have the people, then the next question I would ask is, what is the scaled impact God is putting on your heart? Because if the only scaled impact is we want to have a bigger congregation, then you might need to go back to God. But if scaled impact looks like we want to see more life groups, we want to see more people on fire for God, we want to reach a particular zip code or community for the gospel in a way we've never done before, now you're talking in biblical territory, and now you have a greater chance at sustainability, I think.
I love this so much. This is really good, so rich. On the other hand, you warn against, I think the language you use is dysfunctional loyalty to leaders.
Mhm.
That really stood out to me because we've all seen this, which can lead to unaccountable structures where dissent is stifled, right? People can't disagree in a way that's not disagreeable, right? They can't share a perspective that may be different from the leadership. It
Yes.
proposes clear processes and covenants to prevent abuse, ensuring leaders are held accountable. So, can you talk a little bit more about this emphasis on crucifying loyalty for communal affirmation
Mhm.
versus like more transparency and prioritizing God's glory over human agendas?
Yes. Something about talking to a lawyer just draws out the honesty. So we're just going to have real talk here.
Yes.
Loyalty is a gift in the sense that it allows us to discern people in our lives that we believe will be for us. But loyalty can turn into a detriment when you start to value the loyalty of your yes people over their ability to say yes to God. The moment I have people around me who are more likely to say yes to me than they will to God, then I'm setting myself up for major failure and sin. And the perfect example that I cited even in the book is our Christianity Today podcast on the rise and fall of Mars Hill. Mark Driscoll still leads a church today, bless him, in his congregation. At the time of the recording, and because I don't know him today, I can't say today, but at the time of the downfall of the Mars Hill Church in Seattle, he had surrounded himself with people to whom he was indebted. So the deacons were all people he had done something for. And so they said, "Oh, Pastor, I'll do anything for you because you were there during my child's death. I'll do
Mhm.
anything for you because you helped me do such and such." So then you have people around you who will say yes to anything, and they will inadvertently or directly cover for you in ways that may not even be healthy for the church. So we all have examples of this. And one of the things that we as leaders have to ask ourselves is, am I creating a space where people can provide their opinions and their perspectives, where they can pray, seek the Lord, and tell me what God says, even if it's different from what I think? Because in Black churches, and I'm a part of the Black church, my dad is was a Black pastor. He passed in 2022, but I am a part of Black churches. I love it. But also we struggle with that hierarchy too. We like to have the people closest to the pastor are the ones who will affirm without question. But
Yeah.
you do not need people around you who don't help you to become more like Christ. Christ
Yeah.
calls us to a level of higher accountability. And we need to be able to say, my affirmation comes from God. I'm not looking for it from my deacons or my trustees or my leaders.
Whew, that was a mouthful, and
Yeah.
I have so much that I could dive into there. First of
I know
all,
you have examples.
woo, the rise and fall of Mars Hill. I love that entire series, and I actually got a chance to interview on this podcast, so I'll stick that in the show notes as well. The author of that whole series,
Yeah.
and one of the things that happened in that example is changing the internal operations of the church to not have the voice of
Yeah.
the people in the pews, as I say, be a
Absolutely.
part of the decision making. So whenever you strip the decision making of the church to make it be a part of a very narrow group, and
Yes.
that very narrow group, as you suggested, is kind of, as we say, yes men, then you're creating a dynamic that is not sustainable and not healthy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And
And I
it's
think that's
so
what you're
easy.
speaking to there.
Yes, and it's easy because we start to think, well, that person disagreed with me in the meeting, so maybe I won't put him up to preach. Or maybe, that woman she questioned a decision that I made, so maybe we won't have her chair that committee. But we have to make room. Jesus called 12 disciples knowing that one of them would betray him, and that at the end of the cross they all betrayed him. But he still chose them, and he made space for them to mess up and to get it right and to try again. And that's what cruciform leadership looks like. It's making grace for ourselves, and it's also making room for grace for people that work with us to figure it out and get it right.
So I want to mention this part. One, because I literally had a LOL moment, like I laughed out loud. I could see myself in this writing. This is where you're talking about crucifying perfection. This is in chapter
Oh, yeah.
7,
Yes.
and you talk about how you're one of the perfections, right? You were a teen. I want to say 13 at this time,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. And you went to your grandparents' church, and you could walk
Mhm.
there from where you
Mhm.
were, and but you and your sister, I think, had warned you to not be late, like to come on, right? And you were trying to get your bangs together, right?
Mhm.
I was
Right.
little. Do you see me doing this? Everybody on YouTube can see me doing this. Like I'm doing the roll, and like how, you got to
Yeah.
have the bang a
Yes.
certain way, right?
Yes.
80s
Yes, of
were
course.
great.
There you
Okay.
go.
So, um, but that whole thing of perfection, even though it was told in a humorous way to introduce the concept,
Yeah.
I think is something we can all relate to. And a lot of people get to a leadership role because they want to operate in what I say excellence, right?
Yeah.
We want to
Yeah.
operate in excellence. I believe that excellence is a standard that is achievable by God's grace, right? And if that's your drive to do something well, we want to do something well. But
Right.
perfection is an unreasonable standard. That is only God and never humans. How does this issue of perfection damage
Mm.
the work that we would want to see done in ministry?
Man, perfection really, and as I've been thinking about it since I've written it, if I could rewrite a portion of that, I would have also added in branding, because sometimes we merge perfection and brand. So my brand is a brand of quote excellence, but what that really means is no one is allowed to mess up, not even me. And we start to hold ourselves on a standard that's not only not godly, but actually takes us farther away from God, because perfection rests on me. I have to get it right. I have to dot every I. I have to cross every T. And if I mess up, I hurt my brand. But the only perfection Christ calls us to is perfect union with him. Be
Mm.
ye perfect as I am perfect is not a call to be perfect like Jesus. It's to be in perfect union with Jesus, who was in perfect union with God the Father and God the Spirit. So the call for me as a leader is to be so connected with God that nothing can separate me from his love. And when I know I'm deeply and intimately loved by God, then I don't have to worry about messing up or hurting the brand, because his brand is sufficient grace and his brand is mercy. And then I can give room to breathe. And here's the best part about it. When I give myself room to breathe and I'm in perfect union with Christ, then God exceeds my expectations of perfection. Then I
Wow.
back and I'm like, I couldn't have done that in my flesh. That was the Lord.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'm going to go off script here because you are really raising something that actually ties into the last podcast episode we did was about churches and trademarking and branding, right? Because that is kind of a thing and real legal issues around that. But one of the things that I didn't touch on with the speaker that I guess maybe I would use your what you just shared to sort of transition to is how we can allow for that human imperfection that you talk about while still operating in excellence, right? Which sometimes can feel like a dichotomy.
Yes. Yes, it can. But, I've been wrestling with this lately because people do ask, well, what's your brand? And I think to myself, I don't know. So I've been asking people, what is my brand? And they say the same thing each time. It's authenticity. So I've been taking it to God. Lord, how can I have a quote brand of authenticity when it means sometimes my hair's not the way I want it and sometimes my makeup is not right? But that is part of the brand. And when you think about what is the brand of Jesus, if you look at the disciples, you might say his brand is renegade. His brand is not educated. His brand is people who are the left out and the least and the lost. Well, I want to be part of that brand
Mm,
because the scripture that comes to me is Paul saying, we have this treasure in earthen vessels. That
yes.
the all surpassing power is of God and not of us. So it's okay for me to have a brand of brokenness because he's the one that makes me whole. And it's okay for me to have a brand of authenticity and vulnerability because in that I have the authority of Christ. And I think we have to just reorient a Christian brand. It is not perfection, it's grace filled authenticity.
Wow, wow, wow. So, if I may just sort of use this as a lead in, so what drives you in that same spirit to do the work that you're passionate about at Christianity Today? Like, how do you use that same spirit
Yeah.
in the work that you do there? And I would say, even the work that you do in the Grow
Yeah.
ministry at your church, like, how does this passion funnel your everyday work?
Yeah. I genuinely believe that I have a central calling and it just plays itself out in different areas. I feel called to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and to make disciples. And I've tried for years to add more stuff to it because I was like, it sounds so simple. Like everybody's called to that. But that's what I'm called to do. So
Mm,
whether I am at CT or at my church or at home with my kids or, talking to my nieces, my calling is to demonstrate what it looks like to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and to, by God's grace, help make disciples for the Lord. So for me, that looks like at CT, it looks like a lot of prayer before I go into things. Lord, I don't know which way to go. I think I have an idea, but lead us, guide us. It looks like a lot of grace. Team, I just want to apologize for the decision we made last week. May not have been the best one, but we're so grateful for the way you recouped it. Let's plow ahead. In Grow Ministry, it looks like, hey, let's stay close to the cross and let's raise up leaders who can read scripture and teach people scripture. But hopefully it looks the same. It's just different context each time.
I love this so very much. So, as we're sort of landing the plane, I feel like these discussions always go so fast.
Yeah.
This may tie into what you advocate, at least in my reading, in chapter 5.
Yeah.
I the sense that I get is that you are sharing for the reader's consideration,
Mm.
moving in a slower, more God aligned pace over this relentless speed.
Mm.
Can you share more about that? And again, given your work at Christianity Today, your
Yeah.
commitment at your church, your mothering, your being a
Yes.
wife, your all of the roles that God's called you to serve, like, how does this play out in real life for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I wrestled with that chapter because I knew I didn't want to just say slow down. It really bothers me when people only know to say slow down. When God is doing a lot of things at one time, the blanket message isn't just slow down, it's keep step with God. And that's what I was trying to say in that speed chapter. There are definitely more times of Jesus being slow than there are of him being fast. In general, yes. So, do we in general need to slow down because the world and society around us goes really fast? In general, probably yes. But that's not the only pace of God. There are some suddenly moments of God. There are some immediate moments of God. So I would suggest rather than us setting our time clocks internally or externally to our watches and to the things that we think ought to be happening at a certain time, let's set our clocks internally and externally to the timing of God. In my church growing up, they would say, he may not come when you want him,
But
but
he's
he'll
always on time.
always on time. And if I adapt that to my leadership skills, then there are times when I have to say, team, now's the time. The door is open now. I believe it. I sense it. The door is now. And there'll be times when I can say, let's slow down. I know it seems like the application is due tomorrow, but we really need to slow down and keep pace with God. So that's what it is. Not just a blanket fast or blanket slow, but keep your pace with God.
Nicole, this has been so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. I love your book and I'm excited to be able to share it with listeners. Thank you again for being with us. And before we wrap up, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in as well. And I trust that you've also found this to be such a wonderful time of sharing. As you may know, our virtual church law and leadership summit is happening on September 18th. And I'm excited that Nicole is going to be joining us. Yay! She's going to be with us. So you'll get to hear more from her. And also to celebrate, I'm giving listeners a chance to win a copy of Nicole's book, Nailing It: Why Successful Leadership Demands Suffering and Surrender. And all you have to do is when you sign up, to attend with us the virtual church law and leadership summit, you will be entered to win. Anything you want to share as final words, Nicole?
I am just so grateful that this space exists. It is such a unique and powerful space. So I'm praying for all of your listeners and really hoping that they will be bold enough to surrender it all to Christ on the cross so that we can really enjoy the glory of God's resurrection.
No further words needed from there. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, listeners. We love you, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.